So pretty much it sounds like you need a chainsaw and a backpack sprayer, and that's about all you need.
And a drip torch would be great.
And a drip torch. Those are the
Yeah,
3 tools you need.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and a work ethic.
that's for sure. That goes along with it. No. No, that's really cool. I think it's obviously you've been on that your ethos seems to be catching a lot more traction. Like what your the native habitat it seems like a movement that is only snowballing faster and faster.
It seems like that. I'm really encouraged because when we first started, it felt like we kinda got some strange looks, like we had 3 heads. Like,
You're the
you're
hippies, the hippies of
Yeah.
the
No
of
doubt,
Tennessee.
man. You're nerds. That's all you are. You're plant nerds. And now I see more and more people talking TSI. I've seen more people talking edge feathering, which is like, we certainly did not coin the phrase edge feathering. It was just there's a lot of government agencies that talk about it, but we started using it as a strategy to bring deer. If I got a big food plot, to funnel them into range. Um, we didn't even talk about water holes, but adding a water hole like that is something that I never gave enough value to. And all of a sudden we did it as a what if? And now I'm like, I won't make a food plot without a water hole.
So you like to we'll talk about that real quick. So because there's different philosophies with water holes, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is, well, would you want to put in the food plot because they're already going to go to the food plot, and then there's
Hmm.
like in the transition of. So give us your water hole breakdown, size of it, where to put it, and why.
Yeah, you can call mine EHD pits because that's what everybody else does. Um, but I uh, I love them in food plots and I love them in timber. I love them anywhere I can put them. And because I start to now believe that there is such thing as probably too much, but I don't think they're hurting themselves if they're 200 yards apart at
Hmm.
all. And I've got clients that have put them out, and they're talking like 80% of the deer that come out in the food plot go to the water hole before dark.
Hmm.
I put mine out 3 years ago, and I've killed deer in October before I ever got a chance to hunt the food plots, to really try to see how many deer come to the water holes. But I know a large majority of the deer on camera go to my water holes and use them. And so I've got most of mine in food plots. I'm going to put some in travel corridors in the timber at some point. But overall, I'm a huge advocate for it. And this can't be backed up with research. The research, this is one of the few things that I say that I can't pull research to say this supports what I'm telling you, because the research says deer get most of their water intake from the plants they eat.
Right. That's the anti water hole movement. If like the
Yeah,
guys, why would you put it? They're getting all their moisture from plants.
no doubt. And I'm the guy that I'll be standing on the other side screaming at the research saying, I know, but I'm killing you. Say what you want, but we're killing big deer on them.
Yeah.
And we're helping. So I put them in water holes. I think it's a great place to break up a food plot and put something attractive within bow range. So if a deer comes out, I hit him with a grunt call and I have a mock scrape close by and a water hole, chances are that he's going to come down there. So it's an incredible strategy for me. They're incredibly beneficial for deer and turkeys. And, a side note, when I said EHD pit, that's most people when they see mine, they're like, that's just an EHD pit. You know what eats midges? Dragonflies. You know what eats midge larva? Dragonfly larva. And you should see the amount of dragonflies that are on my little water holes.
Mm.
I create little rock. I mean, I really nerded out on this. Put rocks on the edge, put logs on the edge, young vegetation. There's thousands of dragonflies flying around mine. And anecdotal research, this past year, 2023, was the first year I've had neighbors and people telling me they're finding dead deer from EHD. I didn't find a one around my water holes anywhere around. The deer that I lost went down in the valleys when they shed velvet and they died along the creek. But I didn't
Mm.
lose any. So I live by the idea that EHD is generally impacting areas of high population, probably too many deer, and we're in a drought situation, so water gets isolated down. So you have a lot of deer coming to small amounts of water. It's just like they're led to slaughter. So I'm going the opposite approach, saying the more water I can put on the landscape, so there's areas that there's probably no midges, and the deer can survive there. Plus, it gives me better hunting strategy. I'm just
Yeah.
like the trout are swimming that way, and I'm going the other way.
Yeah. And so when you say water hole, I think there's people that picture a dozer or a backhoe digging a big hole.
Yeah,
There's the earth ponds, there's the Rubbermaid TSC
yeah.
200-gallon
Mine are
water
all
tanks.
natural. That I don't have tanks. I've had clients build them with buckets, front end loaders of tractors, and box blades. I've had clients rent a skid steer and put all theirs in a day. I had a dozer on my farm doing some work, and I told him 30 minutes, and he charged me at that point $120 an hour. So I have $60 in mine, and they're about the size of a swimming pool, an above ground swimming pool, about 20 foot
Oh, they're pretty
across.
big then. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They don't go. They have not gone dry, and I've been in the first year I put them out. They were. I mean, it was wicked dry, and I
Mhm.
still had, I don't know, 500 gallons of water in it. I've never filled them up with a tank. I'm too darn busy to worry about filling up my water holes.
And that's why you go with the natural larger water tank versus a 200-gallon one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want them to go dry, and if they do, that's fine. But mine have not gone dry. They're all close to the timber, so they get a lot of afternoon shade, so they don't evaporate nearly as bad. Um, and I chose my locations because where the tractor tires got squishy when I was planting, I'm like, oh, that's naturally kind of wet. So I just wallowed that out with a dozer, and they all they filled up in the fall, and they've been filled up ever since, except for one that got a little leaky, and I added a product called Damn It. Um,
It's great branding.
great name. But, I think it's out of Australia. It's just a polymer,
Mhm.
and, when the pond filled all the way up, I threw this product on it, and it held.
Hmm.
So, it was like $270 for a 5-gallon bucket, and I think you use a quarter of the bucket per 20-foot surface area, something like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
money well spent.
Yeah, and would you say you're anti, rubber?
Yeah, I'd say I'm anti. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Just
because I've seen a lot of now, people are gonna be like, "Oh." I'm anti-water tank because I've seen more be unsuccessful and a complete waste of time than I've seen be successful. There are those that have been successful, deer are using them, great. But I see a lot of them where the water washed or the dirt washed away, now the water goes underneath them, or we walk up there and there's a dead squirrel in them because the limb fell down, and there's dead frogs in them, and it just doesn't fit my mindset where what I do on the farm is trying to improve it. I'm trying to make it not just good for deer, but good for butterflies, good for quail, good for turkeys, good for everything. And those rubber tanks or those tanks have not impressed me to say that they're great for amphibians as much as they are for deer. So I
fair.
just I want something to be out there where I don't have to worry about it. It's doing its job. And those water holes, the ones we're creating are they're there, and I don't have to do anything for them.
Yeah, we had a guest on here, Kevin Boyer, he's from Illinois, and
Yeah.
he's actually doing a lot of samples on the water analysis because
Hmm.
obviously what's in the soil, minerals and
Yeah.
nutrition. And so he was looking at like depending on putting a water hole underneath a specific tree with the leaves breaking down and giving a
Hmm.
different taste. And I found that to be really fascinating. And he was anti tank as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
whole other wormhole for sure.
To me, yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's when you say there's so much that can confuse you, and it's just like if a man sits down and like, what's that? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and there's that meme that goes around. I
Oh
think
yeah.
his name's Charlie, and he's got
With
the
the
whole all the and he smokes a cigarette. That's what I feel like deer hunters. If you sit on YouTube and you're like deer habitat, enter, you're just like, what
yeah.
did I just
You
uncrack?
watch one video and you're like, "Okay, I think I got the basis of this." And then YouTube recommends the next video and it's the next guy saying like,
The
"Don't
complete
do what
opposite.
yeah, like you probably just watched the video. Don't do that." It
Yeah.
sometimes feels like it's like that. Obviously it's not, but
I know. It sorta is though, because I feel like every time I turn around, I've got somebody sending me something. It's like, "What do you think about this?" And I'm like, "That's like the exact opposite of the podcast we did a month ago."
yeah.
They're like, "It makes sense." And I'm like, "Does it?" I mean, it doesn't match up with the research. And so, I think, like I said, none of what you hear and half of what you see. So chances are people didn't pick up anything on this unless they watched it, and then they're gonna listen to half of it.
No, I think there's a lot of really great information here, and I think we probably just added one more red pin to their board of trying to
No
figure things
doubt.
out.
Yeah, and that's I mean, yeah, to me, like, even the soil health movement and the food plots, that's one that's really coming down. I feel like, you know, I feel like every time I turn around, I'm having a conversation about, "I wanna improve the soil health," and then it's like, "Oh, I thought we wanted to shoot deer." Like, I
Mm.
thought that's what this was all about, is to grow deer and shoot deer, grow turkeys, shoot turkeys. It's like a whole circle. I wanna grow them. I wanna shoot them. I wanna eat them, and then on to the next one.
So are you? So you that doesn't excite you as much?
No.
Like
Mm-mm.
not at all. Why is
It
that?
used to. It
Uh-huh.
used to. I was really into it, and I love soil blend. I love blends in food plots for sure. But it's just a tool. Like, I want to get to where I have the option to plant corn if I want, soybeans if I want, a spring blend, summer blend if I want, a fall blend if I want. The one thing I don't want is a big old waste of time where I plant a certain fall blend and it's just full of weeds and I had no option. Like, I've been around enough of the soil health movement, seen some of the premier, like, farms that people have really gone full fledged into it, and it's like you're on the interstate and you're looking for the quickest exit you can to start back over and reroute, because it's full of ryegrass or it's full of cheatgrass or it's full of crabgrass or goosegrass and it's middle of summer and you're like, the only thing I have is Milo. So soil soil blends, or the soil health movement, I think, is a great movement to get behind. But at the same time, I would challenge every listener to say, do I do food plots to shoot deer, or do I do food plots to make myself feel better about my impact on the land? And if you answer the second one, or you answer that question with the second one, then you should just plant natives anyway.
Mm, yeah. But what about the debate about, the plants pulling up nutrition based off what the soil has available? And so there's like the debate of your food plot will be more attractive and more palatable.
Okay, then I would ask the next question and say, is your deer herd so big that you already struggle to grow enough food in your
Mm,
food plot to provide that? Because most of the time I visit farms and it's the utilization cages show a drastic difference. So even if it is more palatable, then that just means we're going to have more deer foraging on it. So then I'm going to have even more overbrowsing. Um, and then to caveat that, there's some research that we actually had him on the podcast years ago in 2017, I think. But Dr. Craig Harper and his team pulled plant samples of different native forages, and they didn't notice a drastic difference between soil fertility and nutrients in the plants. So up until now, I don't buy into that soil health food plot movement. I think it's sold in a way that make us feel good, feel like we're building soil, but at the same time, they'll oftentimes go back to saying the great prairies and the deep roots and all the vegetation built the soil. So if we
mm.
really are doing it to grow and improve the soil health, then why don't we just plant natives? Um, that's kind of my thoughts. And I was in some of the early on research with running the crimpers, and I just I would feel, and I could be wrong, and I feel like I'll stand on the mountaintop and say I was wrong, but I wish other people would say this is exactly what's going on. We still are using some herbicide, even though you think we're not. Um, and in reality, doesn't really matter what we plant in our food plot. Deer still come to it, and I would say the main reason the food plot's successful is bedding's close by.
Mm.
So that is
What?
I mean, we cracking an egg there, or cracking the can on some worms. It's something that we're really into right now, watching and doing and continuing. But I'm like, what I see is people go full fledged into it, and like, I cut out herbicide, I've cut out soil amendments, and I'm planting blends. I go blend in the spring, blend in the fall, then I blend in the spring, blend in the fall. Well, 3 years of that, and all of a sudden you're chocked full of unwanted weeds. So what is your next option? The crimper really only kills a small amount of the seeds that are in your blend, let alone the weeds that are growing up.
Yeah.
So it's like, is are you planting food plots to shoot deer, or are you planting food plots to improve soil?
Yeah.
Because even if let's say I took a farm that's 200 acres and 3 acres were food plot. What's the ratio of that? What percentage is even okay? 100 acre farm, and I've got 5 acres of food plot.
Sure.
5%.
Yeah.
Five acres on 100 acre farm is a pretty good amount of food plots. Is it even a drop in the bucket to the grand scheme of things?
Well, and I feel like you've done a great job of framing it as TSI native browse is far greater for
Yeah,
herd health.
yeah, and
It's
soil health and carbon sequestration. I mean,
yeah,
all of that. Like the more plants we can grow, breaking down, growing back, that's all helping improve soil health. I just haven't, for me, I haven't seen the research to back it up. I've seen a lot of farmers talk about it and how it helped their soil, but they're not doing it the same way you and I would do it on our food plots because a lot of their vegetation is either getting consumed by cows and the manure and it's staying right there. Our deer are eating it and then going back to bed in the bedding area and pooping a lot of it out. It's
yeah,
not the same.
yeah,
And then they're letting it grow up to where there's a ton of forage above the ground. But the research says that if the if the plant above ground is being consumed over 80%, then the roots aren't growing. And so if the roots aren't growing, then they're not actually adding organic matter to below the soil or below the surface.
yeah.
So I think there's a lot of errors in it. I would love to see more research. At the end of the day, I like shooting deer more than I like the idea of growing blends. And I still plant blends, but I'm not all in by any means.
Yeah, we're gonna have a town hall debate at your local American Legion regarding this and settle it all for
Be-
once.
I'd be glad to do it. Yeah, glad to do it. I mean, I think healthy conversation with the ability to where we can all ask questions and get full transparency is a must. And I mean, I'm just like, just let me ask questions. I don't follow blindly. Just let me ask questions. And if it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me and you can't show me research, then I'm very much a critic of it
Well, do you
until I'm
think?
proven wrong.
What about 4 years from now when a new research paper comes out? At that point, do you look at it with different optics?
I would have to see the research. Yeah, no disrespect. I mean,
Yeah,
MSU is doing. They're actually doing that research right now. I just I don't know if it's transferable to all of us who are doing food plots. Like their base is a plant that none of us can grow in the Midwest and northern United States. And then like my food plot system fits in between their two test sites. There's like full regen and then there's conventional, which is like plowing and tilling. And
mhm,
I'm no till and I spray like every other year. So I'm like kind of in the middle. So like even that research comes out and proves that we had increased use of deer, I would still be like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that changes anything for me.
yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
gonna be watching from the sidelines. I have, I think you're right. The spirit of that movement you can get behind, right?
yeah, absolutely. I
Um,
want to do better for the land. I will be the biggest cheerleader for anyone who says I want to do better for the land. But I will also say, um, man, I almost don't want to say it, but I will also say whose gain here? Like, what are we doing? Like, um, because if we're moving that, like, and the people that are the biggest cheerleaders, biggest advocates, are they still killing big deer out of these food plots? Because if they're not, I don't want any part of it. I
mhm,
like if a guy's telling me to do something
yeah.
to kill deer, but he's not doing it himself, then I want to find an alternative.
So, yeah, I think one way to measure that is, uh, s and it's always so tough to measure because our case studies are wild animal, white and
Yeah.
mature deer. But it would be so fascinating to see a farm that was a perfect mirror, right? Like it's an 80, you have a road that goes right down the middle of it. You got a 40 and a 40. One side of the food plot, or one side your food plots were with that strategy, and the other one was just conventional, or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing, just keep doing it, and see if there was a drastic difference of one food plot getting the other side of the road much more active than the other. Like such a hard thing to replicate in such a unicorn of a farm to be able to
No
test
doubt.
that. Um,
I,
but
I've
I would
always
be fascinated by
I've always wanted to own a farm and have no food plots. Everything be natives. And all I do is cut bedding cuts, make edge feathering like in my openings,
yeah.
put mock scrapes and water holes, and just see if I can have the same level of success. I
And I
don't
would
think I would. I mean, I
you
really
don't.
don't. I think the neighbor who has a standing grain field would probably beat me.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the unfortunate part for me because I feel like most of the time my feet are in the camp of natives. So like native enthusiasts who are not deer hunters, first and foremost, I'm more in their circle. Like we're friends. But then one of them like rips food plots, and I'm like, I still like my food plots. And they're like, well, as long as I had this conversation with a guy on social media, as long as you're not sitting on a food plot in a blind and sitting there, and I'm like, okay, what's that have to do with anything? Of course I'm in a blind. Of course I worked all year long and it's 7 degrees and the wind's howling and I want to sit in a blind over a beautiful food plot that I planted. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And so then that camp's mad at me. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun, man.
yeah, yeah, because that's a debate that with like the farm that has had nothing done to it. I think sometimes there's a benefit to that because you're not tinkering, you're not doing anything, and like once that farm's pretty much established, you're really not putting any intrusion onto it.
Yeah.
And so
For
I
me,
see.
like my farm, I'm always working it. I'm always like I'm burning or I do some TSI. I'm planting some trees or I'm, you know, doing some edge feathering. I like that more than I like deer hunting. Just like there's been so many years over the last, so many times over the last 5 years since my brother and I bought our farm and are really kind of working on it, where it's like it's early October, it's mid October, weather's terrible. We're like, let's go do some TSI or let's go spray some invasives. And so like we're in the middle of our farm where we're like, hey, we could kill a deer here and one of our big bucks here in a month. But that's not stopping me from doing this work.
Okay, is
So,
that? Do you think there's negative impact with that? Measurable negative impact?
uh, short term, yes, probably. Long term, no. I would say
Net positive long term.
I've seen some good farms go downhill because a big buck showed up and they stopped doing the work and managing
Mm,
it and controlling the invasives. And there's some invasives that need killed in the fall versus that's the best time. And so they're not killing it anymore and it's spreading. So for me, that's where I step back and I'm like, I want to kill a deer. I want to shoot 5.5 and older deer, but that's not stopping me from continuing to improve this farm,
mhm.
continuing to shoot does, continuing to do timber stand improvement. Like if I have to timber stand improvement in an area that I know I'm not going to blatantly go in where I feel like our 5.5-year-old is, but I'm not staying off my farm for sake of keeping pressure down. Like I did not buy my farm to sit back and not enjoy.
That's the toughest balance, right? That's
Oh,
the that's
huge.
the angel and the devil on each shoulder there. You're like,
No
"Don't
doubt.
go in there, you're gonna mess it up." Well, I bought it to enjoy it, you know? It's tough.
So I have that question all the time with landowners, and I say put in boundary roads because they're important anyway for prescribed fire. And if your kids call you and they say we want to go ride the four wheeler on a farm, I'd say ride that boundary road all you want because the deer doesn't know the difference between you or the neighbor. All they
Mhm.
know is the center part
Is
has
safe.
way more great bedding and forage and food. So I just tell them that because I refuse to tell a landowner to stay out. I can't do it. It's not in me. I just can't.
Yeah. Well, I hope my dad doesn't listen to this because he's always messing around. I'm like, "Stop."
My dad does the same thing. And I'm like, you got to stay off that road. Stop. It's October 1st. Stop. You can't cut any more wood up there at the dozer deck. or the logging deck. You can't.
Uh-huh.
You're done. But if you want to ride, my farm has a gravel road that goes right through the middle of it, so it's just like you can drive all kinds of roads on my farm, um, but you can't drive certain ones. Right?
Uh-huh.
And those are the ones I'm like, we got to stay out of those. But the boundary roads, give it, yeah, just throttle it up. I don't care
Yeah.
because it's only probably helping me.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I love it. Well, I feel like we're gonna have to do a part two at some point because I feel like we just scratched the surface on some really interesting topics. I just want to say thank you for your time. Know you're busy. Really appreciate you taking the time to carve out some time.
Man, I loved it. This is the first podcast I've done in a while. So today we got to talk about habitat versus debating which episode of Bluey is best with my kids that I've done over the last 2 months. So,
Well,
so,
yeah, I love it. Well, where can people follow along with what you have going on?
yeah, just Land and Legacy podcast. You can search that on iTunes or Spotify, and then on social media, it's just Land and Legacy with the and sign. So there you go. That's pretty much where you can find us. We'll post on social media a lot of the places we're finding and stuff we're learning while we're out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.